Frank's Red Hot is the perfect blend of flavor and heat, so you can use an entire bottle to make recipes like buffalo chicken dip or buffalo nachos, or even things that don't start with buffalo. Frank's Red Hot. I put that on everything.
Hey, Craig.
Hey, Jeff. Welcome to our 150th episode spectacular.
Woo! Party! We got so many special things planned for this.
So many special things. This is Podcast versus Everyone, episode 150. I'm Craig Powers. With me for the 150th fucking time is Jeff Newser. How many hours is that?
It's a lot of hours. Man, it's a lot of hours. I'm sure we said this like at episode 100 or episode 50 or whatever, but we definitely did not think this was going to last that long. Or at least I didn't. Like I was just on a whim. I'm like, hey, we should podcast, and you were like,
not
okay.
many podcasts do.
Cool, but if there's one thing you and I have going for us is we are stubborn as hell and don't know when to quit. So here we are.
Here we are, episode 150. Just to lay out some of the special things we have today, Jeff and I are going to talk about WSU sports.
Oh!
Sports such as
How
basketball, football, volleyball. I mean, wow. Holy cow. I know
so
this is all very special territory for you guys. But we wanted to pull out all the stops, we're going to have a beer segment, it's just crazy, it's wild stuff.
We sat around for hours on our car ride to and from Pullman this weekend, dreaming up ways to make this 150th episode special, and, boy, have we got a show for you guys.
Exactly. Yeah, so buckle up. Hopefully if you're in the car, you already buckled up. Be safe.
I hope so.
Be safe. I don't want if you're afraid of getting trapped in there, just carry a nice pair of scissors in your center console, and then that'll take care of any of that. But buckle up, because Jeff. We are going to talk about the WSU basketball teams, starting with the men.
Oof.
I know, special stuff. A mixed bag of a week for the men's hoops team, but overall positive, especially coming off of the Eastern loss. Definitely positive developments. Given how they performed against Arizona State and USC, especially how well the defense performed. Let's start with that Arizona State game. That's one of the craziest games you'll ever see. That was nuts.
Yeah, that is definitely one way to put it, man. That was something else. The 0.44 points per possession was a new low in the Ken Palm era. So when we say Ken Palm era, we're talking like 2001 and beyond, basically. That was a new low for a conference opponent in the last like 20 seasons.
New low for Arizona State as well.
Yeah, totally crazy. It was, as any kind of outlier performance is, it was definitely a mixture of, really good play by the Cougs and also just some really shitty shooting by Arizona State. Obviously if they play that game, 100 times, this is probably the lowest efficiency for Arizona State in those 100 games. But still, they did it. And especially, as you said, coming off the Eastern game, losing that game, which, the Eastern game was really probably more about, the offense than the defense, really. But still, we had conversations about, the defense has been okay, hasn't been super impressive. And so to go down to Arizona State, which, is a team that we had, issues with last year, and to dominate them so thoroughly, the offense still wasn't great, but you can overlook most of that, when the defense plays like that, cause that was bonkers.
Yeah. It was crazy. Yeah. Obviously, ASU shot a lot of contested shots, but you still expect teams to make more of the contested shots than that. Yep. But, WSU didn't give up a ton of second chances, so they couldn't get many easy buckets. Obviously, WSU's offense left something to be desired. Usually don't score, 0.71 and win by 22 points. That's pretty wild, but I guess there was just a bug hitting both teams, particularly in the first half. WSU gets those 10 points and right away, 10 points on the first 4 possessions, and they're ready to go. And then they just completely stopped shooting for the rest of the half. So that was nuts. WSU obviously played a pretty normal offensive half in the second half. They weren't shooting the lights out, but kind of what you would have expected, and then ASU just kept being bad. They really didn't get much of anything going. So really cool. We know Kyle Smith has the goal every game of holding the opposing team to 49. I'm not sure he ever could have envisioned holding a conference opponent to 29 points, which is just nuts. And it was kind of lost later in the week as they played a much, bigger high profile game against USC, but just give up 29 points in a game. It was nice after we were kind of worried about the defense and yeah, that was the first sign that maybe the defense has more in it than what it showed in the early non-conference part.
What we haven't seen yet, so fans are always sort of looking for the mythical complete performance. We haven't, I guess maybe the Idaho one is, but Idaho is so bad. I don't know how much you take away from that, but, typically we haven't had the offense be good and the defense be good in the same game. And that's kind of, I've heard a coach say, that you get what you emphasize, right? And so after those first 5 games where, the offense was really, really, really good, first 5 games, their lowest point per possession output was 1.09 against UC Santa Barbara. And if you're I don't even understand what these numbers mean, Nooser. Basically, 1.0-ish, is average. So, when you start getting above 1.0, then, that's better and better and better. And so, their first 5 games, Alcorn 1.23, Seattle 1.21. Then, I mentioned Santa Barbara, UC Santa Barbara 1.09. Idaho was 1.51, which is really, 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 really good. 1.22 against Winthrop. Those 4 games were those ones that were all 1.21 and above were 4 of the best offensive performances of Kyle Smith's tenure at WSU, because the offense, as we know, has been kind of a struggle for the first 2 years. And so, okay, so great. The offense is kind of humming. The defense is, it's okay. It's not great. It's got, pretty significant lapses, things like that, right? Okay. Well then, Eastern happens, and of course both sides kind of suck. Well then Arizona State defense is really good. USC defense again, really, really, really good. And so you go, well, but the offense in both of them was, yeah. So maybe this is just, sort of like the growing pains of a season where you're kind of trying to figure out that equilibrium, trying to figure out your ideal personnel to get the balance that you want between those two ends of the floor.
Well, yeah. And we can, you mentioned the USC game. Let's move to talk about that. We were both there. Pretty solid atmosphere, a lot of students there. I mean, they're not used to this. It took them a while to get into it, but, WSU kind of got up a little bit in the first half, and that brought an atmosphere to it. But really, yeah, you mentioned, the defense. The one thing that was concerning is how well USC finished it in the paint or in on twos. But honestly, their bigs weren't crazy effective. Like Chavez Goodwin was 6 of 11 on twos. That's good, but that you can kind of live with that. But Isaiah Mobley was 2 of 7, and it was like some it was kind of some backup bigs that were getting easy buckets. But also they hit a bunch of really tough jumpers, 2-point jumpers, especially Drew Peterson, and so that was tough. It seems the defense definitely against USC, who is probably going to be a pretty good offense. They're 21st right now in adjusted offensive efficiency on KenPom. And if you look at what they've done this year, they have whooped up on everyone offensively. This is easily the lowest they've scored. And actually, I don't know why it was actually. I don't know why KenPom has 99.7. Seems like 63 points on 63 possessions is 1.0, but I don't know. But the lowest they had done was, San Diego State did a little, held them to about the same. San Diego State is a very similar team in capability of WSU, but also San Diego State's defense is currently ranked 9th in adjusted defensive efficiency, while WSU is after that USC performance is closer to they're in the 40s now, right? So they performed as well as San Diego State, who has a very, very good defense. So that encourages you, right? And so and then it was really they limited 3-pointers. So yeah, you're giving up a bunch of 2s, but they're not 3s. That's good. They didn't force a ton of turnovers, but they forced, except for USC's next game against Eastern Kentucky, which sometimes teams can be kind of loose with the ball when they're heavily favored, right? So that when up until WSU, up until they had played WSU, the turnover rate against WSU was the highest they had. WSU held them down rebounding really well, 28%. That's below their average. So there's just a lot of good things. Obviously, the interior defense is lacking. It seemed like less about our bigs struggling against their bigs, and more about probably our guards struggling against their big guards, particularly Peterson and. But yeah, so, and maybe just, defensively up top, struggling. And so, I think if you look at how well they did, there's not going to be many harder teams to guard for WSU than USC this year.
Yep.
So, maybe like UCLA or, someone like that, just because they have just so much length across the board. But it's very encouraging defensive performance against a team like that. And so, I was very happy to see how well they performed after that Eastern game where it was like the rock bottom of the defense, and the Winthrop game and all that. And we were just very worried. It seems after the last two, the defense has corrected, and to do it against a legitimately good offensive team is very encouraging.
Yep. I'm sneaking a quick peek at USC's hoop math numbers. because I know that we were just sort of like, oh man, there these guys, especially, Drew Peterson, right, made us crazy with his 2-point jumpers. They are actually really good at these 2-point jumpers.
Yeah.
And also, like, it's also worth noting that, what Hoot Math is putting together is sort of an inexact deal in the sense that, things aren't always classified correctly or classified the same from school to school or whatever. So with that giant caveat, Drew Peterson's making 55% of his 2-point jumpers this year. Chavez Goodwin is making 56% of his 2-point jumpers. Max Ogbonk Polo, who hit one or two, also is hitting 60% of his 2-point jumpers.
One or two. Clay's a pretty tough one. Like, he hit at least one real tough one. And
yeah. So they were tough, but these are guys who have been hitting them. Some of what we saw, I think, was driven by WSU's lineup choices, and I think that Kyle Smith and his staff have some hard choices to make right now going forward. Really one nice thing about playing this game at this point in the season is it's a little bit of a temperature check, right? Like you're like, okay, we've started the season well, they had the one, whatever against Eastern, but other than that, they've controlled every other game, including the first game against Arizona State, which is a team that was supposed to be about as good as them this year, and obviously they're not. Obviously we're a much stronger team at this point. So okay, now you've got this test against USC and a really good team, and it's kind of a measuring stick, right? And so I think that when you watch that game, there were some real positives, many of which we've talked about. But there's also some questions, right? And, all season, WSU's been rolling with this 3-guard lineup primarily, particularly at the start of games, going Tyrell Roberts and Michael Flowers and Noah Williams. Noah Williams ostensibly is playing a wing position, but he's not a wing. He's a 6'5" shooting guard. So they're doing that. That's a pretty big shift from, philosophically from what he did the last couple of years. They were, pretty big on the perimeter the last couple of years. I mean, Isaac Bonton was 6'3", and everybody else went up from there, right? So you've gone from, 6'3", 6'5", 6'7", 6'8", 6'11", or whatever it was last year, or 6'10", 6'11", if FA and Deshaun were starting together, to now you're going like 5'11", maybe 5'11", 6'1", again, maybe 6'1", then 6'5", then 6'10", 6'11". From there, they're pretty small on the perimeter, and you see where that's maybe causing some issues. Particularly in this game, Noah's out there guarding Drew Peterson. I mean, I don't care if he's shooting a 2-point jumper, which, that's, as we know, is kind of like not the best shot in the world, in terms of value. But, when you're 6'9" shooting over 6'5", I mean, there's just, there's not a whole lot to be done at that point, to influence the shot. And I think that's also part of what we're seeing with, some of the perimeter shots. USC didn't shoot a lot of threes, but some of our other opponents have shot quite a few threes. And, when the guys running out on you are 5'11" and 6'1", it's a lot easier to shoot over the top of those guys. So I do think that the coaching staff needs to take, and I'm sure they are, take a hard look at this 3-guard lineup. They pretty much went away from it in the second half.
Yeah, about the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, and the times when they did try to run it, it pretty much went badly. Couldn't really create on offense, a little bit weaker on defense. But there's trade-offs, right? Like, so you're going to play Flowers next to Noah, and then who's your first guard off the bench? Is it Coulibaly? Is it Roberts? And Noah has, continued to have his issues with turnovers. Coulibaly, same deal. Were they trying to depress turnovers? Maybe not the worst idea in the world when you offensive rebound the way we do. Okay, great. But, there's sort of all these trade-offs happening right now, and none of them seem like a very ideal solution.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, Roberts in particular had some really nice offensive games early in the season, but now when you're playing more athletic, bigger guards, it's very clear he's having a little bit harder time getting his shot off offensively. And then he's also, like you said, giving up so much height and defensively. Not that like I think he's a solid defensive player, but there's only so much you can do at that size, right? So, especially if you're not, a super exceptional athlete. He obviously works his butt off on defense, and he's a very good shooter, but now he needs a little more space, and it's a little tougher to get that space. He was 0 for 7 in this game. All of his shots were rushed or, difficult. So it's and teams know that he can shoot now. So if they take that away, he kind of doesn't have the ability to beat them off the dribble. He can get by a guy, but they can recover with the height. And then he has a lot of trouble if a big comes down. We saw him kind of do these like kind of flip hook half shots, to try to get something up, and those are very, very low percentage shots. So, it's fine if he comes in spurts, and it's fine if Flowers is in and they both bring value, but when they're together, it might just be, too much. And then with Noah, just push it, like you said, just pushing the lineup down, the height down, and they still have the ability to play big. And then we obviously saw basically Bamba and Noah were playing kind of the 2-3 down the stretch with Flowers, and then Roberts would come in sporadically, and then Flowers most of the time, and then you had two of the bigs. Yakumovsky had some real nice defensive minutes, and he made a layup, drive and layup. Woo! That was insane. But yeah, I mean, who really impressed this game is like TJ Bamba, obviously.
Yeah.
Huge shots. Obviously made what could have been the game-winning shot, if not for a defensive lapse on the next possession. Just what he's starting to just improve, and he's starting to show some of that scoring ability to go along with his athletic ability.
Yeah. Back to Roberts for just a sec. He is currently hitting 30% of his twos, which is very, very bad.
Yeah.
His field goal percentage at the rim is 31%. His field goal percentage on 2-point jumpers is 29%. So so that's really kind of the issue, right? I mean, guys can play at that size. Isaiah Thomas at Washington, obviously a pretty exceptional guy, but he played well at that size. Roberts just doesn't seem to have that kind of deal. And to be honest, he really was, as near as I could tell, more of a scoring guard when he was at UC San Diego. Kind of more, we joked heading into the season, that he was like, a Tawan Porter type, right, at Oregon, where, Tawan Porter pretty famously was like 5'8" or whatever. But, just a total pest to deal with, right? He could get to the rim occasionally. He had a tremendous mid-range game. His 3-point range could extend out, 3-4 steps behind the line. Those are the things that, shorter guys have to be able to do. And Roberts just hasn't really shown that yet. I don't know, if he's still kind of feeling his way a little bit in terms of, being cast as a point guard where, he wasn't, I don't think, really a point guard before. I mean, I think he was probably playing.
Well, I will say, if you're talking from like an offensive sets position, like Noah was bringing the ball up a lot, and then they would be running Roberts off screen. So I'm not necessarily sure if they're treating him like a point guard. I don't think he's really running the offense. They do have him run pick and rolls, which if you ask Bryce, if you ask our colleague Bryce, he's struggling quite a bit with, and that might also be related to his height, just being able to see the pass to the big.
I mean, he does have the ball in his hands a lot.
Yeah.
And he's initiating the offense a lot. And when things break down, usually he ends up with the ball in his hands, running a pick and roll or whatever. Yeah. So it's honestly, it's too much. And, the kinds of things he needs to be doing, it seems like, in order to be effective, number one, he needs to be a threat to shoot a three really at any time. If he's going to move the defense when the ball's in his hand, that's really his best shot, is to do that. One interesting thing I've noticed about his three, and just kind of take it for what it's worth, but when he jumps on his jump shot, he jumps quite a bit forward.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Yes, I definitely have.
So that is a small thing that maybe limits a little bit which kinds of threes you can take. It's like, not to compare him to a guy like Steph Curry, but I'm going to compare him to a guy like Steph Curry. When you watch Steph shoot, he's really kind of straight up and down, right? Like he jumps more or less straight up. He's not really jumping forward. And then generates most of the power on his shot, with his wrist flick.
Yeah.
And it's so fast, right? Roberts seems to have to gather a little bit to shoot his three, and he kind of jumps forward, which again, if you've got a guy closing out, it's a little bit different, kind of limits your ability to just kind of pull at any moment. So I don't know. I mean, I don't want to get too down on the kid. My sense was he wasn't brought in to play this many minutes, but he must have impressed them. Maybe just rethinking, kind of how the personnel that we run out. And again, if they do, there's going to be a trade-off. There's definitely going to be some more turnovers, but
yep.
Do you make up for that with increased defensive efficiency? Do you make up for that by scoring, a few more points? I don't know. It's really hard when you look at a guy who went 0 for 7 and you think to yourself, man, if he just makes one of those, right? If he just makes one of those, you probably win. It's a tough deal.
Yeah.
And I know that Kyle Smith is probably working through this as we speak, but there's I don't know. It's a tough situation. I don't think they can keep going the way they're going.
Yeah, and he ultimately started and played 17 minutes, so
Yep.
I could see that be maybe not starting anymore, but I could see him more in the 10 to 15 minute range, especially with the kind of rise of TJ and maybe Andre showing something defensively, because that was, if he missed his 1-3, if Andre hits that 3, then it's almost a perfect game for him.
That's another one that we're like, God, if we just make that one.
And then to me, it seems like hard to keep both TJ and DJ Rodman out of the lineup.
Yeah.
Like, or out of the starting lineup. It seems like one of those guys has to be in there, right? Like it's, because DJ has just been playing so well. Like he's not, he is who he is, he's not going to shoot very often, but he's so pesky. Like he's so pesky. He gets on the floor. He gets off his offensive rebounding, I think, because he's improved his strength a bit and he has gotten even better. And then he's
leading the team in offensive rebounding percentage.
Yeah, and it's not, he doesn't just do that, but he affects, like he prevents teams from getting out on the break because he bothers the rebound. Like he gets his hand in there. So even when he doesn't get the rebound, he makes it harder. I mean, there's times other guys get the rebound because he's in there. So he's just become a very good offensive rebounder. And even though he's limited offensively other ways, that is a very good asset. And if he can do that, hit his free throws, knock down a 3 occasionally, with the defense he plays. I mean, I got to think his minutes are going to keep going up and up, and same for TJ. I mean, the guy is. I was talking to with our good friend Jamie Vinnick on Saturday night about it. We're like, wow, he's 9 of 20 from 3 this year. That's fluky, but then he was 12 of 20 last year. And so maybe he's just as unorthodox as his shot looks. He might just be good enough, and he's quick enough to get by a defender, and that helps. So he doesn't get as challenged. But yeah, obviously he still has room to improve his 2-point shooting. He takes a lot of them towards the rim, and he's not shooting those well. I think he's still got to learn that game. But I seems like his defense has improved. He's getting steals. There's a lot of encouraging play. And so I got to think that you're going to see either TJ Bamba or DJ Rodman get a start coming up here. Because, at some point, I know they focus on practice so much, but you got to look at what's going on in the game, right? So, but yeah, all they were both good. I mean, obviously Koulibaly, people talk about him a lot. He's very exciting. Only 6 minutes. They were, pretty impactful minutes. He had an assist, a turnover, he had a 3. Like so he did a lot. He's going to make
the most of those 6 minutes,
and he's gonna talk and all that. But that's the kind of guy when we look at how could the guards get bigger. How can we get more out of our guards? I mean, if you were starting Jefferson at the 1 and Noah at the 2 and DJ at the 3, then suddenly your lineup is a lot bigger and probably a lot better defensively. But again, Koulibaly turns the ball over. He's kind of a wild card a bit offensively. Probably gambles a lot defensively. Maybe takes you out of it so much. I don't know. But he is that big guard. He's 6'3", 185. 185 is he seems to play even a little stronger than that. So, I've envisioned his minutes going up, but obviously he has some things to improve to align with what the staff is valuing, which right now seems to be turnovers. Unless of course you're Noah, but you got to have Noah in there. He does so much stuff. Like he can't, like he's not coming out. But yeah, so overall that game, it was tough. Like, if you look at the grand scheme of things, they're going to need one of these. They need to beat USC or Arizona or UCLA. Like they need one of those on their resume. And this one was right there for the taking, and it just didn't happen. And although we can be encouraged by the performance, this team is probably as good as we think they were, but you still have to win the games to actually get into the tournament. There's plenty of teams that finish in the 40s, finish in the 50, finish in a place where you would expect them to make the tournament, but they just don't have the big win to get in. And so now we got to hope, we can beat UCLA or UCLA. So we have UCLA right now. You only have one of those big 3 teams. You only have one more home game, and that's a Thursday game against Arizona. And the other, there's 3 others that are on the road, or that 2. So you don't play Arizona on the road, and then you play both the LA schools, which will be a tough weekend on the road. So
you play Arizona once, you play UCLA once, you play USC twice. You've only got 4 games against the 3 teams that are already good enough to be considered quality wins,
even at home.
Yeah, and you only got one more at home. And that's Arizona. It's going to be rough. And the Pac-12, I think, when we looked at the non-conference schedule, we thought, it's not great. It's not super strong, but the Pac-12 should be real good. So, okay. Not the case probably given what we've seen so far. Oregon especially is the one that sort of is like a bit of a head scratcher. I mean, obviously they had a lot of roster turnovers. They always seem to, under Altman, but they're not great, and everybody else is not great either. Is it just kind of looking down the Ken Palm rankings?
WSU is the only other team. Oregon's just right outside of it. Outside of those top 3 who are all in the top 13, WSU is the only team in the top 50 after that. And top 50 in net, which, we can look at the net. WSU was 61st in that because obviously they factor in wins, and so not getting those wins against Eastern and USC hurt. But you're going to need top 50 wins, and they're just not there unless some of these teams start playing a lot better. And now you're to the point where you got to rattle off a lot more conference wins. Just to have a total number of wins that can overcome maybe a lack of big time wins, or you gotta rise up and beat Arizona, USC, UCLA.
Yeah, if you're in the top 4 in the Pac-12, you're probably fine. But it's now you're sort of playing that game. But if you're looking
at what Ken Palm has predicted right now, he has us predicted as finishing 4th, but 11-9.
Right.
And in this league, with our non-conference schedule, I'm not sure that 11-9 is getting you in there.
Yeah, it might not.
Unless you get maybe a road win at UCLA, or road or a home win over Arizona or something.
Yeah. Yep. It's they're going to be walking a little bit of a tightrope on that stuff. It's I don't know that there's much they could have done differently about scheduling. It's not quite as easy as just putting it together unless you're like, oh, sure, we'll go play at, whatever really difficult school. They probably didn't think they'd be at this point this year where they were there to contend for. I think that they're a year ahead of where they thought they would be. And so maybe they wouldn't have made the schedule like as a schedule to get yourself into the tournament. Yeah.
And plus they're looking at, they have 20 non-conference games. They're probably expecting to have better teams in the conference that they're playing. And obviously those teams have underperformed so far.
I think that was the big thing.
Yeah.
To be honest. Yep. They were counting on the Pac-12 to be strong again and be like, okay, we'll have lots of opportunities for quality wins in conference. And, as it turns out, Oregon State really sucks. Washington, we knew Washington and Cal would probably suck, but
you have to
Arizona State really sucks.
Those are must wins probably by
totally
nice you have to win by nice margins too.
Yeah. And then Colorado and Utah, both of them could still make a move up. Oregon, as we said, those teams could all still make a move up.
But Oregon to move up.
We would. But
Oregon State, wow. That is just not coming together anyway.
I mean, I think we thought there was some regression coming, but this is something altogether different, man. I'm just not. I don't. They made a hell of a run last year, but they were still like a top 100 team at the end of the year. Like they're sitting at 136 on KenPom right now. No, this is wild.
They've lost. They won their first game against Portland State, and then they've just lost, and they've not really been. They had the Wake Forest game. That was one against a solid team that they were competitive, but Penn State beats them. Cal beats them pretty good. Arizona beats them pretty good. So they'll probably get a couple wins coming up here, but they're
you would think, but they lost to Samford.
Yeah,
number 243 Samford. Yeah, not Stanford, Samford.
Yeah, they're just not. I mean, they got. Some of the guys they brought in, like Deshaun Davis, is not playing that well, and that
they got a lot of dudes
who
are playing bad.
Jared Lucas is a great shooter, but he's just not a creator, and so they don't really have that creating guard that they had last year with Ethan Thompson. So, we'll see. This is not Oregon State podcast, but yeah, looking ahead. So now after losing to USC, these two games this week and then probably the next few after become even bigger because you got Weber State, South Dakota State, both top 100 teams in KenPom. Weber State is like,
these are tricky.
Weber State, what are they? They were like at 40th in net. So that, and I mean, really, if we're talking the tournament, the net is what matters, right? We could talk about KenPom all we want, but the net is what matters, and we have net rankings now. WSU 61, so they're there. They're there. They're in a position, but that also means they need to do better. They need to do better than what they've done, and the Weber State suddenly is an opportunity. They're number 46.
They're 8-0. They haven't lost.
Yeah,
that's crazy pants.
Yeah, they're number 46. So get that win. And so that also shows like the value of winning, that the value that winning is ascribed in net over KenPom, which by the way, I'm not going to complain. Like I would never complain about that. You should have to win to get into the tournament. I would never be like, put in the 14-14 team because put in Duke last year. I would never say that. So I'm glad that the net factors in wins, but that is why, because they have not beaten anybody. They beat UMass 123. That's their biggest win. They did beat them by 15, but they're that they don't have any impressive wins, but that shows if WSU could have just beaten Eastern, they'd probably be like 10 spots higher.
Yes.
Yes. And so that just shows the how much that loss hurt and why they have more to overcome. And if they would have beaten USC, I would assume they'd be in the 40s of net. Just having that win, and plus they would have that. They also use the quadrant 1, 2, and 3, all that wins. So we would have had one of those. So now you can get technically, no, I think is quadrant 1, it's 30 and below, at home. So this isn't a quadrant 1, but it is a quadrant 2 as we're talking right now.
And those are
That's
good.
31 to 75. That's good to have, especially in the non-conference. So this is a big game, Weber State. And then South Dakota State is, they're on the verge. They could be a quadrant 2 because they're sitting at 76 right now. So there's some real chance, to get some potentially good. I mean, because obviously South Dakota State's probably going to run through their conference, and they're probably going to get a bunch of wins, and so they're going to end up higher. And there's a good chance if you look at the KenPom rankings of Big Sky, Weber State's going to run through their conference and get a bunch more wins, and so they're probably going to be able to maintain those nets pretty high, and so that makes these all the more important. But again, these teams are pretty decent. These are not give me wins in right. any way.
Yep, they're tricky. They're tricky, but we got to get them for sure. So,
got to get them. You need them. Weber State plays very, very small as their starting lineup, but they do have a couple bigs off the bench. So they do have size, so I would kind of expect them probably to play more against WSU. But their core is pretty short on the front line. However, their guards are pretty tall. They have a 6'3" starting point guard who plays almost all the minutes, and they have a 6'4" 2 guard who plays almost all the minutes, and a 6'6" 3 who plays about 70% of the minutes. So, if WSC is rolling out 5'11" and 6'1" and 6'5" against that could be an issue. Even if you have, the 5-inch difference on the other end, so on the back end. So that's what makes these things tricky, right? Like these aren't just like, this isn't a SWAC team coming in. This is a really good Big Sky team. And They definitely can beat you, and they definitely want to. So that one's tricky. South Dakota State, they're actually ranked higher on KenPom, so they're about 74. They also have some big guards, but they also play a 3-guard lineup a lot, so that kind of mitigates some of their size. But they have a lot of ball handlers. And a lot of size, but definitely not much size on the back end. So that's something WSU should definitely be looking to exploit. I expect WSU to kind of handle rebounding against both these teams pretty well. So it comes down to, hitting shots and taking care of the ball, whatever, making plays. Because if you come out, get these 2 wins, you're going to jump in net, probably up into the low 50s. And then you're really set up for the rest of the season.
Yep, for sure. Got to get these, and then and then head into Christmas, and got a little bit of a reprieve after that, but not a huge one. These are all somewhat tricky games, and they really can't afford to lose any of them. Boise
State in Spokane too. Like Spokane is. It's technically WSU's the home team, but those games never seem to go like WSU's the home team, right? So
no, yeah. So it's the reality is they really probably can't afford to lose any of them, which is not a great place to be. Kind of thinking, hey, we got to win all of these games, but I mean, this is the schedule they put together, and these teams are not terrible, and so. But they're also not name brand, and they're also not teams that are likely to be looked at as big quality wins down the road. So, you just gotta beat them. Gotta beat them.
Yeah, go beat them. Let's take a quick break. We'll talk the new coaching hires, which are pretty exciting for football, and we'll talk the women's hoops team, and we'll talk about how volleyball saw their season unfortunately end. But we'll be back after this.
And we're back.
So, Jeff, what are you drinking tonight?
I am having a Fremont Winter Ale. Their Imperial Winter Ale. I figured it's wintertime. It's cold outside. And so a nice little winter warmer type beer would be nice. Real nice, malty drink, to kind of warm your tummy. Reminds me of the days when I used to drink snowcap ales like crazy before Seahawks games. This is like, 10 years ago, 12 years ago. But, to warm me up before a Seahawks game in December, November. So, yeah, it's good. What about you? What you drinking?
Yeah, so winter ale, formerly called Abominable, and that's why bourbon Abominable is a souped up version of it that they age in barrels, and then so they had to change the name because they started distributing in Oregon, and Hub Brewery also has a winter ale called Abominable, and they also do a bourbon and Abominable, and so that's why you see bourbon Abominable is now called B-Bomb, and then Abominable just became winter ale.
There we go.
Fun facts there. It
Learned
was a
something new
cordial.
today.
It was a cordial change. I don't think there was much tension about it. So this is like, hey, this is kind of confusing. They have their exact same style of beer, and that they have the exact same name. So that's once they were both selling beer in the same place, that became an issue.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I am drinking what I bought specifically because of the name, which is Austrian Powers from from Trapdoor Brewing, Vienna Lager. Austria, Vienna, obviously. So Austin Powers was a big thing in my childhood, primarily because people think it's really funny to say like, oh, are you related to Austin? Or is Austin your uncle? And you would think here, 25 years after those movies were made, 20 to 25, that would end. But no, it still happens. It still happens. It still happens. People ask me if I'm related to Austin. So no, I'm not.
Middle name Austin?
I am not.
Danger?
I am not related to a fictional British spy. Nope. I am not. But thank you for asking, though. Obviously, who knows? Maybe I am a real person related to a fictional character. Very good joke that I've heard no less than 1,000 times. So good job, guys. All of you, all 1,000 of you who have made that joke to me over the past 25 years. I'm really proud of you. But anyways, this beer, pretty good. It's a nice Austrian lager, Vienna lager. It's real easy to drink, slightly, just a teensy bit maltier than like a Pilsner might be, or or golden lager or a Dortmunder or something. Very, very drinkable, very tasty, not overly. Sometimes Viennas can be like super malty, and but this one kind of it's right in my wheelhouse. I'm really enjoying it. Real smooth, real tasty. Austrian Powers, Trapdoor Brewing. They're down in Vancouver. They make a lot of good stuff. Check them out. I've enjoyed what I've had from them. That Vancouver beer scene's got its own kind of identity from the Portland scene, so it's cool. But yeah, Jeff. So when we talked last, we talked about bringing Dickert on, and one thing that you were pretty worried about was that he would keep up with this kind of run forward style that we had in the last 5 games of the season with him at the helm. So how do you now feel that he has hired an offensive coordinator, Eric Morris, who is an air raid disciple and was running a pass heavy offense at University of Incarnate Word and doing it quite well?
Yeah, I mean, I look like kind of a big idiot now, don't I?
Wouldn't be the first time, buddy. It's fine.
No, it certainly would not be the first time. Definitely won't be the last time either. This is, credit where credit's due, man. This is good. This is like really, really, really good. When Morris's name, first started, getting floated in our Slack channel, people are like, hey, I'm hearing this thing, and I'm like, no shit. That's awesome. Eric Morris, a guy, who's been to Pullman. He coached, under Leach here. So he kind of knows the deal. Not that he was here for a long time, but he knows the deal. He's an air raid disciple. We say disciple because he didn't, run a pure version of the air raid. So when he left Wazoo, he went to go be, a receivers coach with Cliff Kingsbury, at Texas Tech, eventually, being elevated to, I think, co-offensive coordinator, which, as we know is, Kingsbury was kind of the same as Leach. Like, he's the guy playing the calls. I mean, he's basically the coordinator, but, like working his way up there that way. And then, 4 years at the University of Incarnate Word, which if you've never heard of it, that's okay. But it's an FCS school, culminating with this year. They made it to the FCS playoffs, won, I think, 10 games or something. Offense is explosive and great, and it should be the kind of offense that that many of our fans can kind of wrap their arms around. I don't know much about it in terms of specifics, but I know that it is not a pure air raid as we would think with Leach, where we're throwing the ball 70 to 80% of the time. This is going to be more like probably 60 to 70% of the time, which is still a lot, but is less.
You'll still be among the top 5.
You'll still be among the top throwing teams in the country. But they'll run the ball a bit more than what Leach did. You're going to see a little more creativity. I know Jesse Casino is working on a post kind of breaking down what they do. You'll see some of this other stuff, but ultimately the philosophy is to be open, to be try to be explosive, to really kind of push it with the offense. I kind of reading between the lines with the things that Dickert is saying, the things that Chun is saying. I kind of get the sense that Dickert kind of had to be on board with this sort of thing to convince Chun that he should be the head coach, cause Chun is really, throughout his tenure has really stressed the need, for coaches to be a cultural fit for Washington State. And culture is not just the person themselves. Like, cause I said this on Twitter, I'm like, I'm not sure Dickert's a cultural fit. And people are like, oh my God, what are you talking about? He's like, this guy is totally Pullman. And I'm like, that's not what I'm talking about. Like, I'm not talking about is his aw shucks, personality going to play well in Pullman. What I'm talking about is, we have a long history of being successful with offensive minded coaches and offensively innovative coaches, whether you're talking about Leach, whether you're talking about Mike Price, whether you're talking about Dennis Erickson. I mean, we can go back and back and back of guys who've been successful as offense forward, innovative offensive coaches. So I was I was skeptical. I'm like, this guy's a defensive coach, and not just any defensive coach, but a guy who comes from the Craig Bowl tree, right? Which we kind of talked about. Very conservative, very, kind of run first, man's man, physical football kind of deal. So, that's what I was worried about. And it certainly seems like, Chun was kind of like, hey man, if you want this job, this is how we do it at Washington State.
Yeah.
And it seems like Dickert has bought into that. So yeah, I'm ecstatic, to be honest. I'm not sure that I could be any more pleased by another hire. I'm sure there are guys out there that, maybe might get me more excited. Just because maybe, there's some name recognition or whatever, but in terms of style, in terms of philosophy, in terms of what I think WSU needs, in order to be successful, I think this is like, right up their alley. I mean, I don't know if he's going to work out, because obviously you never know if things are going to work out. But, one thing I tried to emphasize last week when talking about Dickert being hired was that, I think process really matters. Like having good process matters. This to me is great process. Like this is a guy who should fit in. Maybe it doesn't work, but the process of getting here, I think is the right one. And I am super, super, super excited.
Yeah. It's exciting. And then, I'm excited to see an air raid. One thing that obviously Mike Leach's air raid performed very well, particularly towards the end. And then, that 1 year with Connor, but at an elite level, they were a solid level. They were just a good offense for a while. They were great for they were great in certain years. But a lot of the kind of Mike Leach's coaching tree that have done really well and had really good offenses, have incorporated other aspects. They brought in kind of read option, RPO, stuff like that, and mixed it up. They've incorporated some of the other successful elements of college football, where you could say probably the air raid has been one of the most, in the last 20 years, one of the almost certainly the most influential offense in college football, I would say. But the next kind of level of that has been these spread running attacks that are using RPO and using the read option. The read option probably obviously was a massive, or zone read, whatever you want to call it, a massive turning point in college offenses as well, and now in eventually NFL offenses too. But it looks like Morris is going to run that type of air raid with integrating newer elements, and that's exciting. And that probably, that probably helps with Dickert if he wants to run the ball. Then yeah, we're going to run the ball a little bit. We can dominate whatever. So yeah, I'm excited. It definitely, once we started hearing it, like you said, it made me, obviously you can talk about how Chun said, well, maybe he said, this is part, you got to do this if you're getting the job, but also it makes me feel good about Dickert himself, that he's willing to look at what has been successful at WSU and draw from that, instead of just bringing in his own philosophy and trying to force it. And so it's good to see a young coach that's willing to just do what maybe has proven to be successful at WSU, which is a unique and weird place, but also has had some recent very good football success, and also has had some very high highs in the last 25 years. So it's good to see that they're doing that. It makes me feel better about Dickert. And then obviously, I like to see that, because we were worried about his coaching tree. Now offensively, you can tap into that air raid staffing tree, which has a lot of Power 5 experience, and now you're bringing back Clay McGuire to coach the offensive line, who has coached at WSU, he's coached at Tech, he's coached at USC, so he has a lot of Power 5 recruiting, Power 5 teaching experience. I mean, I've heard some people, I'm not privy, as advanced in assessing offensive line coaches this much, but I've heard they don't like the way he teaches, or the way he used to teach offensive line he potentially could have changed. But to bring McGuire back, that's a direct result of bringing Morris in, and that encourages me to the other type of guys they could potentially bring in on this staff. Like, this offensive staff could end up being a real winner with a guy like Morris who has connections and a guy like McGuire who has connections.
Yep. That was obviously the big concern that, okay, so you're promoting a guy who, has spent his entire career, right, at the group of 5 level until he was at, either or the FCS level, until these last, 2 years at Wazoo. And for much of that, he wasn't even able to go out and recruit, so, who's he going to bring in? Who's he going to hire? The fact that he got these 2 guys with, extensive Power 5 experience. And again, I know Morris is coming from FCS, but, extensive Power 5 experience, coaching at Texas Tech, playing at Texas Tech. In theory, recruiting Texas is a thing that we should be able to really do again. There's some Power 5 experience there, and that is honestly kind of all I ever asked for was, okay, so an aggressive offensive philosophy and, some Power 5 guys who can recruit at a Power 5 level. And so it seems like we're getting that, which is exciting. We don't know who else, is coming along with Morris yet. We don't even know how this is going to shake out in terms of coaching the bowl game. I'm not even sure how that works. What's important is that, Morris and McGuire can start going out to recruit because, obviously we haven't added to the recruiting class in quite a while. So far so good. For the people who were sort of blindly both feet in and, scolding me for not being more, having more blind faith, in the hire of Jake Dickert, I hope that, at least makes you feel better to know that I'm like, yeah, like this is all positive. These are all good things. And I'm really so far couldn't be more, if this is the guy, I couldn't be happier with the way he's handled it so far.
Yeah. And then if you look at the defensive side of the ball, I'm pretty encouraged by, the coordinator hire there as well. Brian Ward from, another Brian, from Nevada, also coached for 3 years as a defensive coordinator at Syracuse. Now he got fired by Syracuse, but honestly, his defenses weren't terrible at Syracuse, and they were better than what he came in with. What encourages me is, you talk about, again, what has worked at WSU and what's the culture here. Well, even if you go back to the real good, like Doba defenses, they turned the ball over and they got sacks. They created havoc, and the good, defenses with Leach, under Grinch and the one decent year they had under Clays, they created havoc. And so that's probably what works at WSU, where you're not going to get the big bodies as often, and unless you can bring in a Joe Salavea. What works at WSU is aggressive defenses, and this guy Ward definitely runs. He looks like he runs the same base defense as Dickert, which probably was a requirement for Dickert. He runs like a 4-2-5, and he just, his conference, at Syracuse, he was high nationally in takeaways and in sacks. Same at Nevada, high nationally in takeaways and in sacks. If a guy's just doing it over and over again, it's obviously not just luck.
Yep.
So that's really what kept our defense afloat this year. And I like to see another coach, coming in that plays that type of ball where, you can really turn games on their head, if things are going right. Like we saw Arizona State, where maybe a team is more talented than you, but if you can make plays, you can flip it and win the game. So I like this hire too, and plus he has, like you said, he's got some Power 5, like you said, with the offense, he has Power 5 experience. That's good. This isn't just a career Mountain West guy. This is a guy that's coached around, so maybe he has a good He has a better network. He has a network of a network, all that. He's been a defensive coordinator for 5 years. That's encouraging. So maybe he can build a staff. So I like to see Dickert bringing in a guy like that who has even more kind of high-level defensive coordinator experience than Dickert has. And I think that's a good combo, having them both, considering also they run probably pretty similar styles of defense.
Yep. And that Dickert's going to have his finger on the pulse of the defense
Exactly.
for everything he said about, hey, I'm the, we need a head coach who's, not an offensive guy or a defensive guy, but is, the head coach of the whole team. I get that. And, he may believe that philosophically, but the reality is he's also, he's a defensive coach. So he's going to have his finger on the pulse of the defense. And so I think the hope is, if you look at Ward, the style fits, right? The turnovers, the sacks, the havoc, as you put it, all of those things fit. The reality is, though, the defenses at Nevada were still pretty middle of the road in terms of Mountain West, in most metrics. And then, Syracuse was sort of the same deal. So, the results maybe weren't the best, even if the style was a good fit. Where you take your positives away from that is you say, okay, well, Dickert got good results this year. I mean, obviously Washington State was, not a statistically dominant team. So, maybe it's not even fair to look at that, but, Dickert with the trajectory they were on, and you kind of got a sense of what they were doing. He's going to have his fingers in the defense. And so maybe you hope that, between their two brains that, whatever you've got this sort of aggressive philosophy, you pair it with Dickert's, eyeballs, for lack of a better term, looking at, how to be effective, and maybe the two of them together, create a pretty good unit. So yeah, I'm encouraged by it as well. It seems to make sense. I'm not going to pretend to know a ton about the guy, but it seems to make sense, and it seems to be, a hire that fits. And, like I said, so far Dickert seems to be doing all the right things.
Yeah. So, he was, this year Nevada's defense was 51st in, Fremo's efficiency. Let's see, the year before, they were 68. Miller Road. Obviously, though, you're playing at a, so it's at Syracuse, and so they were pretty bad in his last year at Syracuse. They were 71st. Just kind of running through this great radio. I just want to see, but they were 27th the year before. So in 2017, the year before he took over, Syracuse was 70th. So they kind of went around. They kind of started where they finished after 3 years, but had some highs in between. So, if he gets us to a top 30 type defense, then hell yeah.
Yep.
That has not happened very often. I think it maybe happened once in 2017. That would be great. Top 50. I'll take a top 60, honestly. If we get top 60 defense, a top 25 offense, then that's big time success at WSU. So, and then if you can peak on the defense in a year, peak on the offense in a year, you have years like 2018. So I think these are good hires, and especially what was I expecting? I don't know what I was expecting. I was expecting probably less than this on both. So, I think it's good. It'll be interesting to see.
I definitely was expecting less than this on both.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. I was expecting something extremely underwhelming, something conservative. And again, it was just kind of trying to read the tea leaves, right? I don't know Dickert, whatever, but just what he says. But I'm it's a guy with a pedigree of a certain variety. So I was fully expecting it, and he has surprised me with these, which is great. It's absolutely great. So yeah, very excited. And I'm, I am happy to cheerlead, and I want the guy to succeed. I think people sometimes confuse skepticism with somehow like, I'm sort of rooting against it.
Right.
Absolutely not rooting against it. Like just, I was skeptical of the process, but at this point, he's doing what it looks like to me is all the right things, and that's what you want to see.
Yeah. So we'll follow along as they hire the staff out, and as they finish this recruiting cycle, which will be very important. But yeah, I want to change pace here and go back to basketball. Talk about the women's hoops team. So it's funny. WSU sitting at WSU men sitting at 61 in net rating. WSU women sitting at 62. So they're in a very similar position. They got that win over Miami. Miami is actually at 97, and I think they were expected to maybe be a little better than that. So that win is not quite looking like they were hoping it to be. But obviously in the Pac-12, they're going to have some opportunities. You got Utah is 26th. Arizona is 7. Stanford 9. Oregon 29. These are teams that they've put. Colorado 44. Arizona State 51. So there's definitely the women's team has more opportunity in conference play than the men's team does.
For sure.
To get, which is what they did. I mean, obviously they almost only played conference play last year. But that's what they have. But they have, they have actually another one, a big one coming up this week, which would be big regardless, but actually playing at Gonzaga, who is, they are at number 8 in the net. So this could be a tough game, but it's also quite an opportunity to get a huge win, and also to beat Gonzaga would be great, right? So, but they have a huge game this week against Gonzaga. They took care of business against San Francisco on the road. So now you got really their second biggest game of the year after NC State so far. And yeah, I would love if I could know more about Gonzaga, but I don't. But
we don't spend our time with Gonzaga the way we spend our time learning about Oregon State.
Yeah, come on. But yeah, obviously, big game. It's if they go out and get that win, they'll be sitting pretty heading into conference play, or even honestly a close, keep it close. You probably get a nice bump from that as well. But just go out and win, because beating Gonzaga is always good, folks. Go for it. It's obviously they're. Bill Moose would love to see what has happened at Gonzaga. The whole rising tides lifts all boats, because that's exactly what has happened at Gonzaga with men's basketball. Now their baseball team and their women's basketball team, they're having success. So yeah, go out there. Tough game, obviously, but they have Charlize Ledger-Walker, so if she goes off, they have a chance.
We have Charlize and they don't.
Yep. So, big game. Overall, they've kind of done exactly what they're supposed to do so far in the schedule. They're 6-1. We expected them to lose to North Carolina State. We hoped they would beat Miami, and they did that. We wanted them to beat USF and UC Davis. They did those pretty easily. Now it just comes down to, you got one of your biggest non-conference games, and then a few more games, and you're getting into Pac-12 play, where there's a lot of tough games. They got Stanford that very first weekend, and then Arizona right after that. So a lot of tough games once that starts. But yeah, go beat Gonzaga. That would be sweet.
That would be great.
That is, that'll be tonight. It'll be at the same time as when the men play Weber State. So, get your double screens. I have no idea how you watch Gonzaga women's basketball. If there's like a WCC vision or something. They are also in the polls ranked number 5. No, it's men's basketball. I don't know what they are ranked in the polls, but they are ranked pretty highly on net. So that's all that really matters.
Yeah.
Oh man, just go for 40, Charlize. You're ready. Just go for 40 in the kennel. Come on.
Yep, that would be great. I think we'd be okay with that.
Also, hey, look, WSU and Gonzaga still play each other in basketball.
Yeah, weird.
So, obviously, I think most people listening to this podcast would already know about this, but if you don't, women's volleyball, I don't know why I say women, we only have a women's volleyball team, and the volleyball team, they unfortunately had their season end against a seeded team in Baylor in 3 sets. They came very close to winning the first set, but weren't able to close it out, and then it was all Baylor from there. So that was a real bummer. But you're talking about like one of the top 5 teams in the country playing in their home court. But overall, what's funny with volleyball? It's their 6th straight year in the tournament. They've made it pretty of a habit, a pretty regular habit of winning at least one game. Same as soccer, where we just kind of expect them to get to at least the second round. So,
yep.
We probably should celebrate it a little more because there's so many.
I know.
So many programs at WSU who would love this level of sustained success on a national stage, to get to the second round of the NCAA tournament again, make a 6th tournament again, and then most, they lose one player going into next year. So they return a lot of talent, and maybe they get Juliana Dalton back too. So, it'd be, I expect them to be right there again next year and hopefully pushing farther than they've gone in these previous years. But so far this class that came in, 3 years ago has been very successful, and they've sustained, a pretty good run that volleyball has had. And man, wouldn't it be great, like if the basketball teams or, some other programs just had stretches like this, that the way volleyball and soccer have had, but we've kind of come to expect it. Credit to Jen Greeny building the program, and credit to the players who have chose to come to WSU, the higher and higher level of players that continue to show up and play for the Cougs, because and honestly they're doing it with some kind of subpar facilities and they're still getting results. So go volleyball, go Cougs.
Yeah. Jen Greeny's remarkable. Deserves all the credit in the world for building what she's built, man. It's very, very cool. And again,
let's get a bowler remodel for her.
Yeah. Although, they are one of the few programs that actually has a volleyball specific gym already, which is cool. So yeah, it's awesome. And you're right. I think it doesn't get enough recognition, for the accomplishment, for making NCAA tournament appearances routine. That is, in any program at WSU, that's a pretty awesome accomplishment, especially when you see, how hard it's been to get into the tournament for, the basketball teams or the baseball team at this point. Like, it's not the easiest thing in the world. And so what volleyball and soccer, are both doing is awesome. And, it's very exciting. And, as you mentioned, they're still very young. So, I think we have a right to expect, even bigger things next year, which should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So check that out. Big season coming up for them. Just run through. There was some football awards handed out today. Jaden DeLora, which is kind of funny, but he won freshman offensive player. Excuse me, offensive player of the year. Yeah, so cool. You sometimes kind of forget he was still technically a freshman. And then he did not make the first or second team. Cam Rising and DTR UCLA,
which is
were
ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't know how many years a player can. I mean, WSU has done it many times. Lead the conference in yards and TDs, and maybe goes 7-3 in his starts and 6-1 in the games where he plays most of the games. So it's kind of nuts, but plays at Wazoo. What are you going to do? So I think it's kind of funny that he wins. He ends up honorable mention. So obviously someone voted for him on one of the teams. But someone voted him as an all Pac-12 player. So cheers to you, whoever did that. But it's funny how you would hear like commentators week in and week out down the stretch be like, he's probably the best quarterback in the conference. He's probably the best quarterback in the conference. Well, obviously he didn't get the award for it, even though he had the best looking stats even. I don't know. So he got honorable mention. Ron Stone got first team. That's great. Abe Lucas, of course, got first team. Ron Stone, what a rise he had this season to get there. Second teamers. Oh, surprise. Dean Janikowski, first team place kicker. Wow. That's all that apple cut, man, because he barely kicked any field goals the rest of the season.
But, I mean, I don't know. I'm not familiar enough with everybody else's kickers to know, like, maybe the rest of them were just not very good. I don't know.
I think his high was like a 43-yarder or something. I mean, teams just aren't kicking field goals as much. It's not something that happens as often. So if you go 4-5 or whatever in a game and it's the last game of the year and you only miss a couple all year. Hey, that's awesome. He wasn't even supposed to be the kicker at the start of the year.
Yep.
So good for him, man. I love it. Second team, both our inside receivers, Jackson and Travell Harris. I gotta think like one of those guys should have been a first teamer, but whatever.
Yeah,
man.
That was some bullshit. Calvin Jackson definitely.
Calvin Jackson for sure.
Yeah.
There was who else was on the second team? Was Brennan Jackson was honorable mention. I could there's like websites I could look this information up on and maybe I'll do that right now. But I just mostly wanted to rant about Jaden. Because I just
he deserved to be probably. I mean, I understand the Cam Rising thing, like I get that,
but he was also second team, man. He was
DTR but second team. But second team, like, come on, like.
I mean, DTR put up some good numbers, obviously. Whatever, It's what it is. What it is. Second team. So second team was just Travell Harris and Calvin Jackson, and then their honorable mentions are Jalen Watson. Okay, just an honorable mention. Okay, Jahad Woods, Dejon Stribling. So Dejon Stribling got an All Pac-12 vote from someone.
Yeah, which is okay, I guess.
Also, Lincoln Victor.
Okay.
But then you see guys like Brennan Jackson, Armani Marsh, Jaden. Daniel Isom, Max Borghi, Jahad Woods. So how this works is if you get a vote from someone, you get honorable mention. So, right. I mean, maybe UW voted for Deshaun because I think it's the coaches because he had a pretty good game against them. Lincoln Victor, Oregon State, I want to say, had a pretty good game. But he kind of didn't play very much down the stretch. Or at least didn't produce very much. These are funny. Max Borghi and Lincoln Victor are on the same level. That's how it works. I'm not trying to shade Lincoln Victor. It's just trying to illustrate how honorable mention works. So, Borghi could have been one vote off of being second team, and then he's honorable mention. And then someone else could have gotten one vote, and that makes them honorable mention.
Yep.
So, yeah. Jalen Watson maybe could come back next year. Who knows? Yeah.
He's not. He's already heading out. He's accepted an invitation to the Senior Bowl. So
I know. Hey, you never know. That doesn't mean you're done.
Yeah, that'd be nice. That's all right.
Yeah. So, and hopefully we keep everyone. Oh yeah. One thing we haven't discussed is they're going to the Sun Bowl, which we kind of
yeah, I guess we could talk about that. God.
Yeah, we just go to so many bowl games. It's like,
I know they've just become old hat at this point.
So yeah, so they're playing Miami again. It's the same team they played in 2015. This is what's going to happen.
Miami with a new coach,
Miami
just
with a new
like
coach.
2015.
So that's all. The entire
That's
CBS
all they're going to talk
broadcast
about for 3 hours.
is going to be about Mario Cristobal, and he's not even going to be on the sideline probably.
Nope. He'll probably call in though.
Yeah, it's going to be annoying.
It's going to be so hard.
Hopefully it's early enough in the day that there won't be a basketball game before it, and we miss part of the game. Yeah, because it starts 10 a.m. local time, 9 a.m. over here.
Holy shit. No way. For real?
For real.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Get out your mimosas and your bloodies, man.
Bloody
your
Marys.
Irish coffees. Oh,
I think that's what we're going to have to do.
Your
I'm
breakfast
gonna have to
stouts.
Bloody Mary it up.
Yeah. Not for
Jeez.
me. I just can't drink that much tomato juice.
Yeah. It's a little too much acid.
No, it's just I don't like tomato juice that much.
Oh.
So.
Well,
Yeah, so drinking a drink that is basically just tomato juice and vodka or some spices, it's a lot. But yeah, so yeah, Sun Bowl, I do know some Cougs that are going. Good for them. I saw an arduous journey. If you left on the 30th and returned on the 2nd, I saw you could get a flight on, I think it was like Spirit or Frontier for $375 round trip, pretty good. But also included on the way there a 12-hour layover in Denver, which made the journey in total like 19 hours or something like that.
Yeah.
To get there. So if you want to go for 2 days and have 2 days of traveling as well, so that's fun. But yeah, it's pretty. Outside of that, like pretty cost prohibitive to get there. There's definitely Cougs, flying into Phoenix, flying into Tucson, flying into Albuquerque, whatever, and driving. So all of you people that do that, way to go. Good job. Dedication.
Yeah.
I am not being facetious in any way. That's awesome. I'm not gonna do it this year. I think Amanda would, she asked me, "Are you going to go?" And I was like, "No." And she's like, "Good." Because,
man, you got a wedding.
Yeah, we got a wedding. I also have got a wedding to travel to in North Carolina in February, a wedding to travel in the Florida Keys in April. Got my own wedding.
Goodness.
In June in Mexico.
Jeez.
So we got some we just booked a flight to the North Carolina one. So yeah, it's a lot of stuff, so maybe I shouldn't go to El Paso on New Year's Eve, whatever. But
yeah,
to all y'all, Rochelle, I know you're going with your dad, so have fun and drink all of the whatever the hell they drink down there. I don't know, tequila. I mean, it's right by Mexico. And play all the emo at the bars you can possibly play. But yeah, and do all the wandering you can. Wander all you can in El Paso, Rochelle. But yeah, so I don't know, like, this is what you get when you have these, like, year after year, the same, kind of, bowl agreements.
Well, there's only so many options, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty tough to end up in, distinctly different locations.
And then distinctly different, even, when you're playing the same conference over and over again, you're going to get the same teams that go.
Yep. Well, and what's funny is, like, so part of what the Pac-12 has working against it just sort of constantly is its geographic setup, right? Like, so with these bowl games, these are all, geographically, they're sort of the games that make geographic sense, right? You've got games in California, you've got, game in Texas, you've got, a couple games in Texas, right? So, these things all sort of make sense. You kind of go south and maybe a little bit east of where you're at. And, so that's where we're going to play these games. But, the reality is when you talk about like, well, if they played in games that were farther away, then, they might not go and travel might be prohibitive. And I'm thinking, well, fuck, it already costs you $1,200 to fucking fly to El Paso. Like, if we're thinking about like how much it actually costs to get there, like, I think we all like, I think we could probably fly to Florida for half that. Like put us in Orlando or something. Like, we could fly to Florida for half that cost and save the money and travel and go someplace warmer than El Paso. And I don't know, man. I hope that, when the next round goes, I understand the Sun Bowl, they've got a long tradition in history with the Pac-12. Teams that go typically tend to enjoy the experience of being there because they are well taken care of. But, from a fan perspective, it's not not a preferred destination. So hopefully they can continue to reshape the bowls. They've done some of that with the Las Vegas Bowl, the Los Angeles Bowl. So hopefully they can kind of do the same with the Sun Bowl. I'd hate to see the Sun Bowl get left out altogether, but also, it's tough, man. I mean, there are a lot of people who would like to go to this game and
the Sun
just can't.
The Sun Bowl's great for Arizona State.
Sure.
Like it's perfect for them. Like they could drive there, but anyone else in the conference has to fly there. And El Paso's not really a major airport, and like it's hard to get to. And especially if you're flying the week after Christmas, like that's just makes it even more insane. So it's, I'd love to check it out. I'd love to maybe go over to Juarez or whatever, too, and like check all of it out. But, I just can't make it down there and, this year. But I will happily watch on my couch or maybe in a bar, I don't know, 9 a.m. on the 31st on New Year's Eve. Start.
Maybe we should find a place to go watch.
Yeah. Go watch in the morning and then see if you can make it to midnight.
No, not without a nap.
Yeah. Well, I'll watch the Sun Bowl in the morning, take a nap. I will say,
go back to sleep.
For as low attendance as I expect from WSU fans, I can't imagine.
You'd expect even less for Miami.
I can't imagine there are going to be very many Miami fans there. So let's, and then, who knows? It's hard to predict these games now because we don't know who's going to play. So, already hearing that there's some pretty big WSU names that aren't going to play. So, we'll see how that goes. But I'd love to finish the season on a win because that's fun. That's fun stuff. And we for all my Coug friends going down there, making that long journey to El Paso, love to see them get a W out of it too. We knew this was going to happen. We broke it down already. Like they were going to the Sun Bowl the whole time. I was a bit surprised that the Las Vegas Bowl chose Arizona State over UCLA, to be honest. That was a surprise. I thought it was going to be UCLA and then Arizona State in the Holiday Bowl and us in the Sun Bowl. But apparently Arizona State, sold themselves pretty well to the Las Vegas Bowl.
Yeah. The only other thing I saw was that UCLA had been to Vegas twice in the last however many months, not in football, but in basketball. And maybe that was a reason why.
I did see that too.
I don't know how much I buy that, but that's, I guess, I don't know. I was with you.
It's still like not that far away.
No.
Nope. Yeah. UCLA's also played in Los Angeles many times.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah. a lot of football news for a non-football game week. And yeah, let's go get some W's in basketball, both sides this week. And go Cougs. Or I guess let me say what we should say is, hey, follow me on Twitter at the Craig Powers. Follow me on Instagram at Craig W. Powers. Follow Jeff on Twitter at Pod versus Everyone. If you have any questions or comments, you can send us an email at podcastversuseveryone@gmail.com. We're going to get a Patreon set up. So if you want to give us money, we are going to give you the opportunity to do that soon.
And if you made it this far, you're probably the kind of person that we are actually thinking might give us
maybe
real dollars
give us
for things like
money
this.
For like bonus content and like maybe some cool rewards. I don't know.
We got some big ideas, man.
We got some big ideas. We had a whole drive back from Pullman on Sunday to think about it, and we literally did.
We spent probably 3 of the hours talking about ideas and thinking about what we might do, and causing my wife to have a panic attack in the backseat. How much more time is this going to take?
Yeah, how much more time? So, yeah, if you actually have any ideas for, like, if you have any, like, hey, if you guys are going to do this is what I'd like to see, send us an idea. You know, no guarantee that we'll do it, but I'd love to see it.
But ideas are good. We've got some ideas, too.
We've got some ideas. We'll probably just go with ours, but maybe you have a really good one.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Or it'll just affirm our existing ideas.
Which is mostly what has happened when I asked on Twitter, is like people just kind of affirm the stuff that we already thought. So we're all on the same page here. So look forward to giving us money. We would love your money. Mostly so, you know, we hope you can do some cool things with that money.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess that's it. That's all. And all that's left is to say, go Cougs.
Go Cougs, Craig. Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Get vaccinated, y'all.
Yeah, get your booster.